The Circle of Knowledge podcast is brought to you by Amplified Minds, helping entrepreneurs and professionals achieve their goals and aspirations by sharing a wealth of knowledge to you, our community of achievers. This podcast features best-selling industry resources, interviews, and the professional panel discussion by the core team at Amplified Minds. Now, here are their discussions. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Circle of Knowledge podcast. This is your host, John Kovacs Jr., president of Amplified Minds, founder of the Champion Circle, and just a guy with a lot of ADHD energy, but really somebody who loves to serve humankind. Today is kind of a really fun time and a really honorable opportunity for me to interview a really good friend. And I'm really excited to bring him on as he's been launching and in the process of launching something he's been working on for a really long time. And I'm just super excited to honor him and to interview him and get into the weeds and in the details about this project that he's been building. Before that, we wanted to say thank you to everybody who's been subscribing and liking and following the Circle of Knowledge podcast. We are now up to 21,000 followers and listeners and downloads worldwide. And I know I think it was 2 weeks ago, we went through the analytics and I just started listing off the 30 different countries that it's being reached by. And you crazy individuals all over the world, I love you all to death. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah, and thank you for the claps. It's amazing.
Awesome.
How much you can reach so many people. And honestly, the story is we started in the basement of my best friend's house. And it evolved to having an actual microphone and an actual, studio and facility that we've been doing this. So thank you. So without any further ado, let me introduce you guys to my good friend, Neal C Hooper. And before you say anything, Neal, I just want to share with people my perspective on how we met. So
yes,
we were both associated with a small institution called the LDS Business College. We are part of a business institutional college in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I was a student. I believe Neal was a student and also a contributing member of the teaching staff. He was teaching some courses and doing so. And there was this conference. And you see, the conference was called Learn to Earn, or I think it was, I can't even remember what it was, but it was
Foundations for Success.
That was it. Foundations for Success. That was the first one. And then it went to Learn to Earn. And then Foundations for Success was the following one. And in these conferences, we had breakout sessions. And in the breakout sessions, we could go and attend various classroom stuff. And Neal was leading this one that had a lot to do with authenticity. And I have a photo of myself holding up this wooden poster that he was issuing around, and it had several and I kind of just have to pull it up as I'm talking about it, but it had several pieces of wisdom to add to the way you were living your life. And the one thing that came back to me the most is I always remembered this was just be authentic and just be present. And there was a few other things. I don't know if you remember them all, but I have a picture of it. And those things just impacted my life. And I kept in touch. I kept in touch with Neal. I reached out to him through LinkedIn. We ended up getting each other's phone numbers, and then we ended up talking about some of the things he was developing. There was a point that we had a really cool, long discussion about the principles of accountability and goal setting. And to this day, I look up to this man and this gentleman for everything he does. And I don't know what he's going to say in reverse. I hope he doesn't feel pressured to, because I honestly just am so impressed. And so I love the value that he is seeking to offer to the world. And I got that in one little instant at a success conference. And today I get to watch and honor him as he's building new programs and trying to help people in a very, very awesome way. So without any further ado, I'm going to release the silence that we've put on Mr. Neal C Hooper. Hey, everybody.
Oh man, you make me feel so special, John. You know, that is one of your gifts. You roll out the red carpet for everybody. And I certainly feel like I've been on the receiving end of so many nuggets, so much kindness, and just amazingness. And it's been so cool. I'll tell you, I remember that day. I remember when we took that picture, and it was a play theory applied improv workshop that we were doing. And yeah, we talked about authenticity, being present. And it's funny, as a facilitator of those workshops, you kind of take note of the participants, right? And you know, they're intended to push you out of your comfort zone. And I just remember when we got going, there was this guy who came in, and he was just so full of life and so happy to be there and engaged. And that, of course, was John. You know, he rolled in there full of life. And the tagline for that workshop was "Happiness is a skill." And I think that is a skill that John has developed. And oh man, it's been so cool to see what you're building, and to see through your authenticity and really through your kindness and generosity, just how you've been able to not only find success, but to help others really springboard into success as well. And it truly is my honor to be on this podcast and to sit down with John, who I consider a dear friend as well. So thank you so much, man. You know how to make people feel special. So that was great.
Hey, you're welcome. And I can clip that out and send you a personal testimonial, because I think that's something I love. A month, it was in February, I spoke on a stage called the Habitude Warrior stage. And I was one of the MCs, and I got to meet a guy backstage who was a professional boxer, and he uses his boxing career to raise money for cancer in a various group. And anyways, as we became friends and as we got to learn him, I got to introduce him on stage, and he used my introduction for his promo video. And so to this day, there's a John Kovac in his video. So I'm sometimes I watch it just because it's so much fun. But here's for those of you watching our podcast, here's this picture I have on my Instagram. That's my skinny 190-pound face there. And I'm holding this wooden sign that says, "Be present, let go and play, say yes, and then at the bottom it says, look outward." And that one little improv session that we worked with Neal C Hooper impacted me for my entire life. And he says I had that skill. I'm constantly learning it, but I appreciate that beautiful, awesome reciprocal comment. And I love it. And right now, dude, it's my opportunity to honor you. I'm so excited to have you on the show today, and to allow people to get to know you. So enough about me, enough about the show. Let's talk about you. I told them my story and how you and I met, but give me a little bit of background about who you are, where you've come from, your upbringing. And this is an opportunity for you to brag a little bit and talk about where you've come, the good, the bad, the ugly, and where you're at now.
That's awesome. I so appreciate that. My story, going back, I grew up in a family of 5 kids. I was the middle child, which is hard enough, right? But then being in the middle of 5 kids with a mother who had severe clinical depression, it was kind of a struggle growing up. I would say financially for sure, but just emotionally. And I saw firsthand kind of the effect of just that lack of drive and lack of vision, right? And I love my mother, and she was facing her own demons, but I knew early on that I wanted a better life, and I wanted to really set my sights, on something better and really work hard, right? So, at age 13, I got my first job sweeping out storage units to help provide for the family, and I bounced around from job to job, just trying to pull my weight, right? I was at a car wash. I made bug screens, window screens, and then I was a chimney sweep, believe it or not, at one point. So a little interesting trivia for you. But I remember, I got to this point, I learned how to work hard, right? And I had a very close relationship with my siblings. And I remember everything was so reactionary, though. It was like things just happened to us, and we weren't ever able to really escape that cycle of kind of living from paycheck to paycheck, and not being able to really get ahead. And we had some dear friends. When I was in high school at 16, one of my mentors, he later became a very influential mentor in my life. He asked me, he said, Neal, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I thought about it. And I guess just to back up a little bit more, I bought my first car for $100, and that thing was awesome. It was a Mercury Grand Marquis. This thing was a boat, man. Like, you had to drop anchor every time you parked it. I'd be like, if I'm giving people a ride, I'd be like, hey, put on the life vest. We're going to, get burgers or something. But awesome car, but it did not work very well. So, just to paint the picture a little more, I had to sign up for a free class at the community college for an intro to mechanics class. And the deal was you could bring your car in and work on it as part of the experiential learning, right? And so just to keep this thing running, I had to sign up for this class and bring it in and work on it. And at one point, at a low point, I actually had to have a spare battery in the passenger seat with jumper cables on it just to start it. But, it was fun. I liked doing that. And in this moment when this mentor asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I thought, I like working on cars. I get my hands dirty. And so that's what I told him. I said, I think I'd like to be a mechanic. And he was so kind and so wise in his response. He could have said a lot of things, right? But, and he was a very successful entrepreneur, a very successful businessman, right? But he just looked at me and he said, Neal, I know you could be a successful mechanic because you're good at whatever you put your mind to, but you have very specific skills with people, with leadership. And I think if you didn't use those skills and talents, it would be a real shame. And from there, the conversation, we explored different aspects of careers, and he talked to me about sales, business, entrepreneurship. And what he really did, that was the first of many conversations I had with him, but he helped me see a better tomorrow. He helped me think ahead. And it was something I hadn't really done a lot of up until that point in my life. And so he really helped me capture this vision, right, of what could be. And it was exciting. Everything up until that point, I just was a leaf in the wind, right? But he later introduced me to some books that changed my life. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, some classics there, and really helped shape my mind into what could be, taught me how to do visualizations, how to do vision boards. And he and his wife, who are just amazing people and really shaped me, they helped me perceive value in a better tomorrow. But also, and very importantly, they helped me perceive capability in myself in obtaining that value and that dream. And he actually coached me and mentored me into starting two different businesses. The first one was a lawn mowing company called Hack Jobs. Great brand, by the way.
Love that.
If you want to steal that, you can. And then the other was a trailer park renovation company. So he owned a bunch of trailer parks and was very successful in that. And he actually partnered with me, right? And he acted as the bank, and I'd take out loans to go get the supplies to fix up these trailer parks where people would get evicted, and then we'd repossess them and sell them, right? And he just taught me, he mentored me, he coached me. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but these were two principles that were dramatically going to change my life and later become a passion project, which we'll get more into later. But it really comes back to that perceived value and perceived capability. And those are the two key ingredients for any drive, your motivation. It all comes back to these two things. And there's a really cool way to learn how to apply that. And what I've done is really tried to create models and step-by-step plans to help people reach higher, love deeper, and passionately pursue their dream life. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. But yeah.
I absolutely love the story, the background, and it literally sounds and feels like it sounds like you came from a great family, but it sounds like your family went through every struggle possible or imaginable as a kid, at least, to see that your family growing up from that perspective, and then still be able to find and hone in on your skills and strengths, and to have the guy who turned to be a mentor to suggest to you how greatness is within you and how much more is available to you. I love that background. I love that story. And you just don't get that when you when you meet people right up front, right? You just don't
No.
understand that. And as you get to know people deeper, you recognize that their past and their upbringing is a lot of the reason why we get to see the new present you. And that is so cool. I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited to honor too about this development that you're creating, and how to help people achieve goals is such an amazing and honorable thing to do, because we all have them and everyone's dreams are important. And we live in such a beautiful, awesome country that gives us the freedom to work towards things. And so my first question to you is, is please share us a little bit about the development side of what you've been creating lately. And let's kind of dive into the weeds of that and talk more about why it works and what it does for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Thank you. So as I mentioned, and I'm going to try to be fancy here, you told me about this whiteboard feature on Zoom. So I got my pencil here so I can kind of illustrate this. And for those that are just listening in and can't see what I'm doing, I'll try to explain as I go too. So let me see here. If I go,
share.
Okay, share. And then it says only the host can share in this meeting.
Access. I can do this.
Oh, he's going to give me the power, but it'll really come back to, and it's all based on this, these two concepts, right? So perceived value and perceived capability, right? So the cool thing is they actually did a study at Clemson University, and they did some studies with some students. They did about 499 students, and they observed these students. And what they did was they tried to observe them in relation to goals they had set for their education. And what they found was there were two key themes that ran through, and it backs up my experience that I had growing up with this perceived value and perceived capability. So let's see here. I'm just going to write them up here at the top. Let's see if this is working now. So, okay, can you see me? Am I drawn on here? We might have to go to the actual whiteboard.
That's fine.
That's okay. Okay, let's do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was going to try to be fancy with the technology, but we'll just go old school.
We're learning.
That's right. Okay, so I have a whiteboard, again, for those that are listening here. And so you got these two concepts, right? Perceived value and perceived capability. Another way to look at this is it's the why and the how, right? So if you take, the cool thing about this is if you consider that these are the two concepts you need for drive, right? For your passion, to be driven, you really need to perceive value in the goal, right? Or the task at hand. But you also have to perceive your capability in obtaining that value. You got to have both, right? So when you plot these in a matrix, it's really cool what you can see. And so this model has been vetted by PhDs in a master's program. I actually was able to create this. So if you go, we'll make a little box here, right? Can you see that okay?
Absolutely.
So is that beautiful? Is that a perfect square? So here's what we're going to do. If you put perceived value, put PV there on the vertical axis. Okay, so for those listening, I got a box with four quadrants, right? And if you put perceived value on the vertical axis, the vertical line here, and you put perceived capability on the horizontal axis, you can start to understand where you are in relation to a goal, right? So let's say you set a goal, and you want to understand if you're making progress toward that goal, you can actually evaluate yourself. So let's say you got point A is where you are, point B is where you want to go. That's your goal or your hopeful outcome, right? Well, sometimes we perceive value in point B. We perceive value in the goal. We understand the why. We want it. We crave it, right? So, and I'm gonna use some different colors here. So if you perceive value in the goal, right? So you're up on the vertical axis, but you do not perceive capability. You say, I want it, but I don't think I could acquire that. I don't have the skills. I don't have the resources. I don't have the time. Then you actually wind up here in the discouraged box, right? So I'll just write discouraged so that it all fits. You're discouraged, right? That means you don't have the how. You don't have the perceived capability, and that's in the top left corner of the quadrant. But, sometimes it's not the perceived value that's the issue. Sometimes, sometimes it's not the perceived capability. It's not the how. You have the skills. You have the time, right? But if you don't perceive value, if you don't understand the why in the goal in that point B, then you are disengaged, right? So we'll write disengaged here. And that is in the bottom right corner of the quadrant. So, obviously, if you don't perceive value or capability in a goal, you're here. And this is the dormant box. We don't want to be there, right? And so, obviously, any of these boxes are not going to be our ideal. But when you can perceive value in a goal and you perceive that capability, you are in the top right corner of the box. You're heading toward your point B and you are driven, right? So that's the drive box. Now, I know it's kind of a lot, but once you really understand this model, the power behind this model and where I get really excited is I can set a goal, and then at any given moment, and we've actually developed an assessment that you can take. So you write down the goal, and then we have a questionnaire that actually rates you based on your level of perceived value and your level of perceived capability, and you can understand where you are. Well, guess what? If I'm disengaged, what do I need to be driven? Right? If I'm in that bottom right quadrant, I need the perceived value. I need the why, right? So, and also, on the other hand, if I'm discouraged, what do I need? I need that perceived capability. And there are ways you can hack this, right? If you need the why, you can reground in a visualization. You can look at statistics and facts. You can tell stories. If you need the perceived capability, you need that how. You can get a mentor, you can get a coach, an accountability partner. I know you're really passionate about that, John. And it's so helpful, right? Because then instantly you can boost that perception of capability and that hope in your skill set. And so again, I know I'm kind of all over the place here. It's a lot more organized in the course we're putting together. But I just wanted to illustrate that point because really these two concepts, when you organize them in this model, it can be very powerful. And we'll talk a little bit later as well about goal setting and really how you can be more effective at that. Because I think the how and the why are often absent. And I think it really messes us up when we set those goals for obvious reasons. When you understand the research behind it, if you don't perceive that value or that capability, you're dead in the water, right? So in a nutshell, that is the perceive to achieve framework for you with those two concepts.
I absolutely love that. And like you mentioned, yes, we are pretty passionate over here about accountability, but I think to simplify the diagram, and I love the education background and the research and then the diagram of I thought we were going to go down the route of showing a linear line, and I was like, this will be interesting. And I even loved how it ended up because I love the quadrants because that reminds me of, Think and Grow Rich. And it also reminds me of Robert Kiyosaki's, Rich Dad Poor Dad concepts. And I love the quadrants. And but just going into that, so a goal without a why or a how is incomplete and cannot necessarily be achieved at the highest rate or the highest perceived value and the highest perceived perceived
capability,
then it's almost not worth pursuing, or not worth considering because it's not even available. It's not a reality to most people. It reminds me of
Exactly.
when, and I'm blanking his name. Well, I'll just tell the story. I know everyone else knows his name, but when the first man broke the 4-minute mile, okay, it had never been done by anyone before. And when the first man had broken the 4-minute mile, it wasn't more than 3 or 4 weeks later when there were there were more individuals who broke the 4-minute mile, and there were even more individuals from the 4-minute mile who broke it. And then from across the world, there were more people that had done it. And it all stemmed from this ability that there was perceived capability on top of the perceived value that finally shot them up, reaching that that top right quadrant. And that's a fascinating concept. And I think that the missing piece was the how. Everyone wanted the why, but they didn't have the how, and then vice versa. And on many of our goals, maybe it's our New Year's resolutions, right? We have a how, or we have a why, but we don't have a how, and maybe even vice versa. There's a how, but maybe no why behind it. Enough to propel us to that. I love that concept. Oh, we're talking about some good stuff.
And I love that. Yeah, I love it. And I love that you brought that story up because it's just that. And I think the word perceive is so important that leads both of these concepts because it is your perception. And when you understand it's a perception, all these people who couldn't break that 4-minute mile, right? They perceived a limit, right? And once that limit was broken, it opened the floodgates and everybody started breaking that barrier. And so when you
even
can learn
to kids,
right, even in high school, right? Which and it's just so cool when you understand that you can. I hate to use the word hack, but right. For lack of a better word, you can actually hack that. Your perception is a very malleable thing. Some perceptions are harder than others. Trauma can really instill some very grounded perceptions of your capability and values, right? But when you really do the work on your subconscious, you can start to tweak that, and that's where the power and that internal drive, you can really start to take advantage of that. So it's just really cool stuff. I love that you brought that story up.
Well, I do love that example. I'm grateful we had the old school whiteboard to show it. And for those of you who will be listening to this later, Neal did a great job of describing the various quadrants of that graph. And just think of the box and think of the 4 quadrants: the upper quadrant, the lower quadrant, the lower right, and the upper right. And so you'll be able to hear that and see it. And I snagged a cool photo of you while you were preaching that, and we'll be able to put that up. We'll be able to put that up for the audio listeners too, so they have that resource. But I'm so excited to transition this discussion over to the goal, the goal setting and the goal achieving part, because I think that will be a really cool way to connect the dots and say, okay, well, now here's the theory, but let's back the theory with the process and show them what it takes to create the outcome.
Exactly. Now, a helpful metaphor that I use as I introduce these concepts, I love to hike. I think you're an outdoorsy guy too, right, John?
I live in Heber City, Utah for a reason.
That's right. Oh man, I'm jealous of you now. Yeah, I love the outdoors. And actually I grew up in California, and every summer the same family, so that became my mentor and coach, they would go and hike in Yosemite. And I started going with them. We do these amazing backpacking trips on the John Muir Trail, and just through the Sierras. It was beautiful. And I'll never forget. So this one time we were going cross country, and McKay Florence is his name. The mentor that I mentioned earlier, he's just a maverick, right? So we're going cross country for several days at a time. And we're going through these valleys and around these lakes and up these talus fields. And I remember he pulled me aside and he handed me the map we were using to navigate this terrain. And he said, okay, Neal, this is where we need to go. This is where we are. What's the best path to get there, right? And I just looked at the map. It's a topographical map, which if you're not familiar with that, they draw the line so you can actually see the elevation of the terrain you're navigating. And I'd never really navigated one of these before, so it was kind of foreign to me. And I'm looking at this thing and turning it around and, just kind of drawing a straight line. But once he explained how it worked, he showed me that when the lines are closer together, that's higher elevation. And if you can start to identify, ledges and ridges and lakes. And once he showed me how to work the map, I was able to identify the best path to get there. And so for half a day, I was the navigator, and I went forward and was able to get us to the destination. And I'll never forget that experience, because when you think of life as a map, you think of goal setting as a map. It's just like we were talking. You got point A, that's where you are, and then you got point B, that's where you want to go. The important thing, once you've identified that, is now to make that path, right? And sometimes you go down one path and you need to course correct, but if you still have that why, you still have that point B clearly identified, you're okay, and you can keep going. And so that's, when you think about it from this hiking metaphor, and I love the outdoors, so it's kind of a fun brand, right? We call it the Perceive to Achieve Expedition. Right. So that's our cohort. We're actually doing a group. Actually, we're starting the same day you're starting your group.
June 9th.
Yeah. 2 weeks from this Tuesday. So, or a week from this Tuesday. Right. So anyway, but we break it down into 3 parts. Right. And so the first part is to map your life. Okay. So you got to get your map. You got to understand where you are and where you want to go. That's the first piece. The second part of the experience is you got to pack your gear, right? This is the how. You got to have good hiking shoes. You got to have the tent. You got to have the water, and if you don't have those things, you're not going to make it to your summit. And so you map your life, you pack your gear, and then the third module is you hit the trail. You take action, right? You go. And so I've broken it down into these 3 parts. And it really is the why, right? Map your life. There's the why. Pack your gear, there's the how, and then there's hit the trail. That's the kick your pants, get you going piece. I don't know if that falls into the model per se, but yeah, it's just really powerful. And I'll tell you, the pack your gear part is really important. And what we've done is we've compiled a lot of tools that, over the past 10 years, I've been gathering and benchmarking, and you were actually a huge asset for me as I did research about the gear you need to hike your metaphorical mountain. And so there's accountability partners, there's morning routines, there's vision boards, there's dashboards, with habit trackers and project management. There's task flow systems. So there's a lot of tools really to, once you've mapped out your life, to make that progress. But one of the tools that we're most proud of with the Perceive to Achieve Expedition is actually the SMARTer goal, right? So we all know what a SMART goal is. You want to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And, there's a few variations of the acronym, but that I think is the most common one. So, but again, that all to me, when you look at that, if you're not careful, that's a lot of what. But if you don't get intentional, the why and the how can be absent from that SMART goal, right? So what we've done to the acronym to make a SMARTer goal is we've added an E and an R to the end. And I know other people have used the same model, but it's not backed by research and it doesn't take the same angle. So our E is an execution plan. That's the how, right? The R is your reason why. The why. So what we've done is again, based in the research, we've taken those elements and infused them into the SMARTer goal sheet. And it's pretty powerful. I actually, I can show one on the screen. Everybody who's listening actually will get to download their own SMARTer goal sheet. It's a freebie. It's a little gift I'll be giving. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here talking about the giveaway already, but
Neal's on fire, you guys. He's already given away the punchline. I love it.
I know. I'm already giving away stuff. But if you look here, and I know it's a lot, I don't know if you can see all that, but
let me full screen here. There you go.
Yeah, here we go. So you got the SMART goal is just this little section up here. And for those listening, it's just a little paragraph at the top. But then you get in your execution plan. You identify the immediate next steps you're going to take. You identify obstacles that are going to prevent you from getting there, and you anticipate solutions. You do 3 of those. You come down here, you identify an accountability partner, you get their contact information there, and then we have a little box here for that reason why. And it can be a vision statement for you to capture. So when things get rough, you can reground in that why. What am I doing this for in the first place? But when you really get this detailed about a goal, and there's some bonuses down here at the bottom too, some check boxes that you can set up a dashboard and get incentives, your accountability partner incentive, affirmations, all the whole 9 yards. Once you take the time to really outline your goal into a smarter goal format, you are so driven. You are in that driven box because you have that value and that capability totally captured. So anyway, sorry, man, you got me all excited and I just went off there. Hopefully that was okay.
That's totally fine. This is our show, man. We do whatever we want on here. I love it.
That's right.
I love that. And I love I love the, remind me what the R stands for again.
The reason why.
Okay. So for reason why, I love that in various parts of that programming, you have the ability to check back to why you're doing it. And I love that because, and I'll be the first one to admit, many people say, oh, John, he's all about accountability and setting goals and stuff. And I'll be the first one to tell them that, yes, I have set over 1,000 goals in my life. And I have also not achieved over 1,000 goals in my life. Like I've missed out on so many, and that's just part of the process. But when you forget the why along the way, it no longer becomes perceived value. And I love that because we're just going back to that cool diagram you showed us, because when you lose track of the perceived value, the capability is still there, but maybe it just drops. And maybe you fall into one of those other quadrants and those specific words that you described to show them. And I love that example because science-based, research-based, that is exactly what happens when we fall off the vision, when we fall off the track, or if we venture off of the path that we're heading in the direction. A good friend of mine, his name's Bob Cattell. Bob Cattell has spoken on stage with Tony Robbins, and he is on that tour, and he has shifted his vocabulary from using the word goals to directions. And I respect him for it because he's literally talking about the same thing, but because of the way he wants to use his vocabulary, he changed that word around. And I think goals is a great word. I totally endorse it, and I use it and I bastardize it because I think it's such a good word. But just to bring this all home for what I was trying to get at, which is I love that concept of reconsidering your why and then reaching your why, right? So that R is just such an important piece because it's not just a one-time thing, it's reciprocal. It's a repetitive process. There's what I'm looking for. But I love that. And I'm eating this up, Neal. This is going so well for me. I hope my listeners are as passionate and excited about this as I am, because this is just good stuff.
Oh man, I love it. And I love that you brought that up too, because if you don't set up your environment, that's another thing that is really hard, right? If you have these moments of passion and you don't take advantage of those, there's strong you, right? You know when there's strong you is at the wheel, and you're all fired up. And if you don't take action to change your environment, weak you comes back on board and starts driving you down the same old path you've always been. So it's important to let strong you make those changes to your environment to keep that why at the forefront of your mind. Because if you don't have these reminders, and if you don't incorporate that into your environment and into your routine, it's really easy, like you said, to forget the why and become disengaged or dormant, right? And on a side note, I think another thing I'm passionate about is helping people find passion in their jobs or find those ways to really make an exit strategy out of corporate America. And a lot of time what happens is people in corporate America, a lot of goals are imposed on them, right? So it's a top-down approach, and that why is not very clear, or if it is, it's not aligned. And so a lot of people are disengaged. There's a lot of data that supports that out there. I think over 60%, I'd have to look at the statistics again, of people in corporate America. I think it's higher than that actually, but they're just disengaged because another cool part of this whole model is when you think of yourself as a manager or a leader, you can use these same principles to inspire passion and drive in those that you're leading. And if there's not that drive and action taking place, you can narrow it down to, you either got to boost the perceived value, you got to tell that story better, or you got to help them perceive that capability. You got to set up the tools and resources. So anyway, I love it, man. I could just go off. We could just go back and forth like this for a long time, couldn't we?
For a long time. This is going to be a really long episode. I hope you guys are ready. We're going to break this up into 6 parts. Just kidding. So I wrote something down here because I wanted to cover something that actually just the light bulb turned on for me. And because it turned on for me, I believe that if I can understand something, anyone can. Just this is how that ADHD brain works. But so remind my listeners and remind myself, as you wrote down the definition of the SMART goals and the acronym of SMART, remind me what you used for E and for R. And I had a note here about something that you said that works with the E.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, you got SMART, and then the E and the R are execution plan, the how, and then the R is reason why. So that's the why, or the perceived value, right? If we're using the terms from the research.
Awesome. And I want to continue to honor how brilliant this is, because as you were saying this, it occurred to me, the light came on as you first earlier, you said, you've got to set up your resources. You got to make sure that you do your research, and you got to figure out how to achieve the goal, that you perceive the value and you perceive the capability, and knowing the capability is setting up the resources to help you have success. And then you mentioned environment, and you said, when you take the environment and you change that environment, it goes back to, I think it was Maxwell, John Maxwell, who described it, and he probably described it the way someone else described it. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And when you have that, you realize that if you don't change the resources in which you do stuff, whether let's just say diet, for example, if you don't change the way you eat or the time you eat and so forth, then you're not going to do it. But when you influence your environment around that too, then you've created the complete version of the how. And I love that. And that for me,
yes,
a light bulb turned on as you were describing that. And I thought, okay, so it's not just the resources, it's the environment and the resources that complete the how in the execution plan as part of the smarter goals.
Absolutely.
I feel like the student, man. I'm so excited. I'm such a student. Hey,
you're teaching me, man. No. I love it. And it's so, we could nerd out a lot actually, because when you look at perceived value and perceived capability, there's actually 2 sub bullets that make up both of those points. And you touched on it perfectly. The perceived capability, it's your skills and your knowledge, but it's also your resources and your environment, right? So those are the 2 pieces that make up that overall how. And perceived value, it's inherent value in the goal or in the outcome. But then the other part is the cost or the price of obtaining that value. And so that's important to remember, that just because, you really want something, if the price is too high, if the cost is too great, then the overall perceived value goes down, right? So perfect example, I had a buddy who, or I guess the example that's applicable to everybody, you see something you really want at the store, it could be anything, right? But if you really want it and then you look at that price tag and it's out of your budget, the overall value goes down. It's not worth it. And it's the same reason why I think discounted food tastes better, right? Is it just me, or anyway?
I'm with you.
Yeah, when you get a good deal on food, it's like the value is even greater, right? So anyway, important concepts to remember too for those 2 points.
Absolutely. And I'm going to take a quick second here. And before we transition to the next discussion, as I come back here. So before we transition to the next topic and really just dive into some of the nuggets of knowledge that I wanted to hone in on. I know we talked about the quadrant, the diagram. We talked about, you know, the setting goal process, and you showed us a little bit about that. I do think that there's just like one really, really valuable piece of nugget knowledge that we can share with our listeners. But before we do that, what this is reminding me of, and this was set for us in theory a very long time ago by the name of the man Dale Carnegie and the Carnegie Foundation. And even before that, his apprentice was a man by the name of Napoleon Hill. And he wrote and transcribed the book Think and Grow Rich. And in this book, he walks through step by step a theory. We'll call it it's his theory on what Carnegie taught on the process of setting your sights on something. And in this book, it's very woo-wooey. It's very theory-based. It's very discussion based on experience-based. And this is what he observed in the life of the richest man in the world at the time, which was Mr. Carnegie. And I love that because it was before its time, but they didn't have research backing it. They didn't have the process. They didn't have the linear functions to describe the process. And now what I love what you guys are doing is you've dived so deep into this to find the why and the how process that adds to it. And I just wanted to honor that and compliment you all on that, and to share with you how that is, how I'm seeing and making those two connections. And I love it because I live by this. This is like my business Bible, but I need more than just the theory and the old sayings and somebody's word. And this is extremely helpful and proven and awesome. So I think that's great. And I don't know if you had any comments about that before we transition over to maybe focusing on one nugget.
Yeah, that's very kind of you to point that out. And it's so good to hear that as I share these concepts, to hear people say that, because that is really one of the things that inspired me to go down this road and to really pursue creating a system and process. Because, I mean, to be honest, if you do a Google search of motivation, or you go to Amazon Books, that word, I mean, there's so much out there, right? And, a lot of it can be on the more, principle, theoretical side, but to really break it down and to create a process that you can follow and that you can repeat over and over to really get those results you want is very powerful. And that's why we wanted to go this route. So I appreciate and I'm glad to hear you say that. Thank you.
And I love it. And since we already gave away the punchline on our free gift here, I think our listeners are going to have a really, really good time hearing what you just said and applying that as they go through the process of setting their goals and so forth. I think that's going to be a really, really great thing. Let's hone in on one really, really important piece of knowledge, one really, really good golden nugget of knowledge. If you were to impress upon the people listening today, or the people listening to this years down the road, what's one thing you would love for them to understand and know, a piece of knowledge that you believe that everyone should know and hear as they begin this process, or as they start setting goals, or as they start working in this direction? What's something that you would share with them?
Oh, yeah, it's a hard question, right? When you feel so strongly about so many things. But at the end of the day, I think we get paralyzed often with, decision fatigue, information overload. That's the world we live in, right? We're getting hit from all sides constantly with information that we want, information we don't want, information people want us to want, right? And I think we can kind of get into this analysis paralysis stage where we're just, we might even be ideating and having great, passionate thoughts. And I think sometimes the why may even come relatively easy. You might be able to identify something you're passionate about. And so, but really, and I know you're passionate about this because I know you always have a call to action at the end of every one of these discussions. And I love that because that is where the growth happens. That is where the magic happens. And I think it doesn't matter how good of an idea you have. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're not applying things, And if you're so afraid of failure, you're so afraid of being disappointed, then you're not going to experience life. You're not going to be able to really develop and grow in the ways you need to. And so my passionate plea would be to take that action and to know that in your pursuit of that which you want, what you are passionate about, you will become maybe not the way you thought. It might not go down the way you thought, but you, in that process of striving, of putting forth that effort to reach and to obtain that, that is where the magic happens. That is where you will reach your potential, and that is where you will find true satisfaction and success is in that process. And if I can help anybody do that, then I'm meeting my vision and my goal, right? That is what I want to do to the world, is help people really take that step, take that action, and keep going, right? Sometimes we're driven, but sometimes we fall into that disengaged box. Sometimes we're in the discouraged box. Sometimes we're dormant, or depleted, right? If you spend too much time in the dormant box, you're just done, right? And to help people get out of that and to keep going. It used to be the results box. It used to be the done box, but I actually reworded it because sometimes you're not done, but you are headed that direction. And I like what you brought up before about goals versus direction, because I think that's really powerful. But that would be my plea, is just to go, just to do it, and to know that that is the process. Love the process, and you'll get there.
And I wanted to highlight that too, because this is an act of bravery. A lot of the things that we hope and dream for,
Yes.
we're not willing to put out on paper, or we're not willing to actually elicit the facts that would cause us to obtain, whether it's wealth, happiness, joy, experience, whatever the greatness that we're seeking to achieve, that which we desire at most. It takes an act of bravery, and that's literally what we're talking about here. Is if you could
Yes.
just be brave, or if you could just have a little courage for an hour to identify exactly the why and the how behind what you're reaching towards and what you would desire, then here for a moment your life just got a little bit better, and a lot better, and even
That's right.
more better, and even greatness in just the idea of perceiving the value and simultaneously the capability. And that's what I love what you've done here, Neal. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's very kind of you. That is very kind of you. And I think, yeah, that's exactly the action. The first step I love everyone to take is to set a small goal, right? Something you can achieve in the next 2 weeks, right? And then I give people that smarter goal sheet that everyone's going to get. And I say, just take those 10 minutes, just 10 minutes of courage, right? Let strong you take the wheel just for a little while, and you go through that. You shut your door, you turn off your phone, and you fill out that smarter goal sheet, and you start to build that momentum. Because once you do, there ain't no stopping you, and then it's game over, right? For the fear and the doubt.
And I want to take that opportunity to transition over here and say, Neal is giving you guys a free access to that workshop, that worksheet that you can use to download and print out and use, or do it on your computer, whatever you want to do. And the way that you can receive that is by going to www.perceive2achieve.com. Now, this will be in the show notes if you're watching this live on Facebook or YouTube. This will be in the show notes. You would see there. I'll have my editors edit it into the screen so you can see it. But it's Perceive, PERCEIVE, good. The number 2, Achieve, ACHIEVE. You got to get my C's and my V's and my I's and my E's. I know everyone does, but perceive2achieve.com / and let me see here.
You know what? I'm making it easy. I'm going to slap it right on the homepage, right front and center.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Just go to the website and you will see it, and you can download your copy of that worksheet so that you can do it. And I implore that a lot of you listening will download that, but then take that advice take the challenge that Neal set for you guys and just turn your phone off, go somewhere, seclude yourself, take yourself out of humanity for a little bit, and dive into your dreams and dive into your goals, and open up your mind and just try it. Because and I think you said earlier, Neal, that it only takes you about 20 minutes or so, depending on the size.
Yep.
Wow. And what a great way to get started on your future, to get started on what you're working towards, and to have clarity and vision on the high and the wow, the high and the wow, the why and the how. I like that. The high and the wow. I mixed those two.
I might change the model and actually incorporate that into it.
The high and the wow factor, the why and the how, everybody. Thank you. Tongue tied on a late Friday. But that's the value that you're going to get from this. And from there to perceivetoachieve.com, you're going to be able to learn more about what these guys are creating and what they've done, and what they've done to help you achieve your goals. Because in the end, it's that what you said, Neal, is that makes you feel fulfilled when you are helping other people achieve their goals. And I absolutely adore that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. This has just been, I love sitting down and sharing these principles, but it is such a bonus. It's such a treat to sit down with somebody else who feels just as passionately about them, and who understands it and who gets it. And I can just see what you've built. You understand this stuff. That's why you've gotten where you are, and why you're going to continue to grow. And I can't wait to just watch and see, and who knows, maybe be a little part of that too, because this is really exciting stuff.
Or I just realized I had an idea. The light bulb turned on my ADHD brain, and I said, oh, hey,
Yes.
I'm going to download this because it is a free gift, and I'm going to actually record the process in which I go through it, and I'll post it for everybody and just kind of walk that through, because I think that'd be super cool. Now, I didn't want to be too one-sided. Now I want to take just a second here and reach out to my pessimistic friends who listen to this show. And I want to say, I love you and I adore you guys. Now, I can appreciate this because where in my life, I am the visionary, I'm the dreamer, and my wife, my spouse, my partner, my love of my life, she is the realist. And together we knock heads on this kind of stuff all the time, where I dream so big, it's astronomical. And she's like, what? Yeah, right. And you take those two things, and I want to reach out to my realists out there. Okay. Not the pessimists, but the realist. And I want to share with you that this challenge gives you the blueprint and the knowledge to back up the action that we're talking about. And I think that in itself is going to help you recognize that this system, this process is going to help you a lot more. And I wanted to just be a realist for a second to advise to them, so we extend our reach on their audience and just let them know that this is not exclusive to you. This is inclusive to everyone. And I think that that's a really good point to mention, because there are a lot of people who say, yeah, another worksheet, another goal setting sheet. No, this one's different, and this is why. And we just explained that. And so I'm excited for all of you to try it, and all of you to jump on in. And I'm going to take it from the perspective of who I've always been and who I am, but I'm looking forward to the results of my perceived value combined and coupled with the perceived capabilities that I'm looking towards.
Awesome, man. I love that you brought that up, because that crowd benefits a lot actually from this worksheet as well. So great plug. I'm stealing all these audio clips, man.
I'll have our VAs clip them for you. I know that you have it here and I could say it, but I'd love for you to share with my listeners how they could personally get in touch with you if they have questions. I posted in the comment section here if anyone had any questions. We had over 50 people jump in and watch this live, and we appreciate you and honor all of you too for watching. And no one posted any questions, but if you wanted to reach out to Neal C Hooper in person or over virtual systems, how would you recommend that they find you and contact you about this?
Yeah, so I have been very active on LinkedIn lately, and I love it for a lot of reasons, but also just to connect with people. So you can certainly find me on LinkedIn. I would love to chat more. I would love to even set up time to dive deep. If you have, if you printed off the worksheet and you want some you have some questions, you want to work through that, I'll tell you what, for the first 5 people that reach out, I'd love to do a one-on-one half hour and just kind of walk you through that. And we can talk more too. I'm also very passionate about life mapping and kind of, getting really clear about your overall life and how to do that. And so if there's any interest there, again, I'd love to give away some value and just walk you through that whole process as well. But yeah, LinkedIn's great. Actually on the website too, there's a contact us button that shoots emails straight to my inbox too. So you can certainly use that as well. And then, if you're friends with John on Facebook, we're mutual friends. And so you can connect there as well.
I love LinkedIn. It's a great place to connect. And Neal is very, very active on there. You just mentioned something that got me thinking. And since I don't like to have goodbyes or ends or to close things out, obviously, since we're now an hour and a half into this, but I would say that, for the next time I bring Neal on the show, he just sends something that I didn't know about him, and I'm now learning and I'm taking note of it. But he says he loves life mapping and mind mapping. And so stay tuned for next time when I bring Neal back on the show and we talk about mind and life mapping and how cool that is and his processes and his ideas. That would be a really, really fun topic and discussion. So there we go. Chapter 2, already set and ready.
Ooh, I can't wait, man. I can't wait. That'll be awesome.
Oh, well, again, I can't go without saying it again, but thank you so much for your time, Neal. And I appreciate you coming on my show and adding the edification and the education to help my listeners and to help these people throughout the world, from Tunisia all the way to Pakistan, to everyone in all those crazy, awesome countries. We love you and we appreciate you, but thank you for spending this time and obviously the sacrifice. This was no easy road as you shared your story. Thank you for, sticking to it and creating what you have. And obviously this is the learning step. Now we get to watch and see how we influence people and we adjust and we move forward from there. And I'm so excited to be part of that journey and to watch you hit those strides and to do so. And I can't wait to support you. And I hope to my listeners that they'll do so as well, because any opportunity to grow and improve is an opportunity worth taking. And so I appreciate you and just thank you again for being on my show.
Thank you. I love you, brother. You're awesome. Thank you so much. It was really my humble honor to be on the show. So thank you. Can't wait to do it again.
Okay. Chapter 2 coming soon. Everybody, thank you for listening. And this has been an awesome, awesome interview. One for the